Table Talk is not your typical D&D TTRPG podcast. We are not here to run you through our whole campaign.
We're here to talk about everything else in the space of tabletop roleplay.
I'm your host, Alejandra Wilhelm.
And I'm also your host, Mariah Gresham.
And we're your tabletop roleplay girlies. Alrighty. Yeah, and we are live. Welcome back to another episode of Table Talk. We are going to continue the pattern, and we have been collecting Ryans apparently across the board. But today we are the menagerie of Ryans that we're slowly amassing. I don't have any ulterior motives to start a Ryan army or anything. But
to defeat the Kens.
In the name of Barbie. But yes, we are joined here today by none other than Ryan from RUNDMG. You want to give us a little bit of an intro about you, all the cool stuff that you do, and where people can find you.
Hey, I am RUNDMG. I make an unhealthy amount of memes and propagate them pretty much everywhere I can on the internet. They're usually tabletop RPG based in some way. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube, even YouTube Shorts. I'm basically everywhere. The only place I'm really not anymore is I quit Twitter because it was just a flaming mess, and I don't like it no more.
Which I think is a consensus that most of us have followed through.
Yeah, I'm fully on Threads now. But yeah, I make tabletop RPG memes. I also do some like informational videos occasionally when I feel like that's a good thing to do. I started a second account so I could do more fun, like different stuff, just experiment with some things. So I have a channel called More RUNDMG if for some reason you want more of me. I also make tabletop RPG adventures, which is something I've started within the last year or so. I have an itch. And I've made adventures for Into the Odd. I've made an adventure for Cairn. And I've made 2 one-pagers that are, pretty much everything for free. The only one that's not free is the really big adventure I made for Cairn because it was just too much work not to give it out for free.
Yeah.
I saw randomly, because I was like, my mom has been holding me at gunpoint to tell her what I want for Christmas, even though yes, I know it is October, but last year they moved into the new house that they built, so she didn't get to put her Christmas tree up until 3 days before Christmas. And we're a family that the latest we put our stuff up is the day after Thanksgiving. So I think she has Christmas PTSD. So she's just been holding everyone at gunpoint since September, being tell me what you want for Christmas. But I was researching, I think Blaze in the Dark or something, and I saw Cairn, and I was that looks interesting. And I know nothing about it, and I didn't let myself click on it. So I'm I don't need another thing.
Cairn is super good. It's also free if you just want it. I think the PDF of it's free. If you want the print, it's $3 on Amazon. They do some special editions occasionally, but it's really
Mariah
cool.
Just tucked her hair behind her ear and is grabbing her phone.
In a tab.
It's good. So a Cairn is an offshoot of a kind of more of a different game called Into the Odd. Into the Odd is a very, I hate to say basic. I think a better word is elegant. It doesn't have a lot of bloat or anything. You can fit most of the rules on a page or two. And
nice.
it's extremely adaptable to all sorts of things. And you can add a lot of things onto it. So there is a whole cottage industry of people that just make hacks of Into the Odd. Cairn, I think, is probably one of the most popular ones. And it's like the NSR, the New School Rebellion or Renaissance, whatever. And you can use that system to play old games. You can use it to play new games. It's really adaptable for all sorts of things. And it's really good. I entered. So the reason I made that Cairn adventure is that the creator, Yochai, I've never actually heard his name said, so I don't know how it's actually pronounced. But he had a game jam on itch. So that's one of the reasons I made the adventure.
Oh,
That's really cool. I'm excited to look into this because I've kind of been hunting down different potential systems to use as a scaffold for a narrative kind of anthology story podcast thing. So I'm that seems like an interesting one.
Into the Odd could be a good one. And the best part about the Into the Odd book is that it is a beautiful book. It's a, what's it A4, A5, whatever. It's kind of a little small, but it's got great art in it. And it is it's one of the best made books I've ever received. And I have a lot of books. I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of the pictures of my collection of books on
Yes,
on,
I have.
Yeah.
Threads. I have a lot of books, and that's up there. It's really far up there.
Yeah, you have an astounding collection because I remember I don't remember who had started that whole like, hey, show me like what you got kind of thing. And I was like, here's my little section of my bookshelf. And you're like, here's my fucking like library.
The game store I live in.
Yeah. Oh my god, this book
try
Into
not
the
to-
Odd looks so
It's
good.
so pretty.
It's really cool. I try not to brag about it too much, but if people open themselves up to me sharing it, I'm definitely going to share.
Hey, listen, we're all about a shameless plug, even for things that you're like just passionate about. So
I have that
here
with
for
like
it.
normal books. I've run out of bookcase real estate, except I need to move. All my video games are taking D&D cards are taking over a shelf. But
they all need their individual homes.
I've started to just have to stack books on top of my rows of books because there is no more real estate, but I keep buying books.
I feel that hard. I keep on buying stuff. I keep on buying board games. There was a humble bundle for Vampire the Masquerade that's actually might still be going on.
I got that shit. I'm waiting to save them all to my computer.
So, but there was, I think at the highest tier of the bundle, you could also get, it's like Vampire the Masquerade Rivals, the card game. So I got that, and it only was like $11 for shipping, so it wasn't bad at all.
I think 100% you shared that humble bundle, and I sent that shit to Mariah.
Tagged me. Our friend, like, Alex was like, if there's a game, like, I might want to play. I'm like, don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah.
Don't play in my face.
I think it might be the best bundle they've done so far, because they did one about a year and a half ago. I think that's where I got the V5 books originally, but it was just I think it was the Anarch, the Cam book, and then the rule book.
Yeah.
And that itself was like $15. This, for like $20, you get almost every vampire book they've put out with some adventures. So it's like a great deal.
So, the adventures I'm really excited to look through, because like there was a period where I was just like starting to collect. We played the first session of like my, calling it a campaign is generous because it's really just like chaos gay activities at this point, but that's what we signed up for. So there's a period where like there's a D&D store by Ollie's house, so every time we would go to Houston to play D&D, we would go there, and I'd be like, I'm not gonna buy anything, I'm not gonna buy any more VTM books. And then I'll be damned, every single time our friend Bex would find one that I didn't have. Like, I would go over to the section where they usually are and be like, oh man, like I have all of these, or I don't need the ones they have. Like, sure, what a shame. And then here comes her gremlin ass, just being like, I found.
She's like, I somehow got into the back storeroom like a goblin.
Like, okay, now I have to get it. Yeah, because I have like the normal source book, the player guide, which is actually really cool.
I've heard the player guide is great. It's much better it's much easier to create a character than using the book itself.
I make myself like read the big boy, and then I give like my players the player guide to look through to make their characters. Like, then I have, what do I have? The Cam, I have Cult of the Blood Gods, I have Fall of London, and I have like one other one. But yeah, like getting the werewolf one, and like the Hunter, the Reckoning one, and all of those like VTM adventures. I'm really interested in that because I need some plot scaffolding. Right, because we're playing Fall of London, but it's
air quotes.
But I fucked it up because everybody came up with their own very cool characters that have their own stuff going on. I'm like, well, that's what we're doing now. Under like the veil of the political stuff in London, but even the humans can't kill all the vampires yet because I want like Mithras and Roger shenanigans and like the court and them trying to like, I'm like, that's what I'm interested in. So fuck the Cyclonic Inquisition and the horse they rode in on. Like, they're not killing everyone right now. Maybe later.
I get that. I don't even know. I've never run a Vampire the Masquerade adventure or been in like an official adventure. I don't know how it would work, because how I know Vampire is just chaos and like you attempting to do things, and then like it seems like it works, and then it almost invariably makes everything worse.
Yeah, that's generally the vibe.
So that's how I know Vampire. I just don't know how you would take that magic and like put it onto page and have it make sense necessarily. I don't know, but
yeah. So I mean, like for Fall of London, it's like Mithras had his heralds of the sun that like way back millennia ago.
Mm-hmm.
He like named to be his heralds, and then they were kind of put into torpor and buried, and like those graves were lost during the war and stuff. So like Fall of London starts with them exhuming the heralds, and everybody's supposed to play a herald. Did I do that?
No.
And then I thought, I'm like, I'll just slot them in, and I'm like, it's not actually that simple, because it doesn't make sense. And so, but it's fine. I love all of the characters my players have made, and I'm much more excited about what they have going on than
I got
am.
so fucking obsessed. Because like once you get me on a track to making a character and I get that good momentum going, by fucking God.
Also reply to OSRP.
Shit, yes, I need to.
I was just bored one day, and like all I was dragging up, and I wrote, because like she and I do a ton of like
written RP
role, like out of session role play because I made a server, and so like everybody has their own channel where it's just them and I.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wrote her something, and I'm like, I made a thing. Look at it. She was like, yeah. It was like the last time you came out.
Yeah. But like that, I remember like coming over to like make our characters, and I had like kind of an idea, because I was like talking it over with her, and I literally decided like, I don't know, I'm a history nut, and like I just remember finding out like one of my favorite things is finding out how like different things that we normally think are separate existed around the same time. So shit like how Vikings technically were like in the Americas before Columbus, and shit like that. So we're kind of working off like semi alternate universe, but like what if some of those Vikings stayed?
Yeah, modified history.
I'm like, what if some of those Vikings decided to stay? What if some of them integrated with like Native American cultures a little bit? And so like my character is someone like descended from this like weird mesh of like Viking Native American cultures that all kind of coincide, and they were essentially helping the natives fight against like the colonists to retain their territories. And she gets captured at Roanoke. And
interesting. Well, that's a lot of history packed in there.
Yeah. So Sir Walter Riley, who like is canonically there and is the guy like mostly governing that city, we've now made as like a Toreador, who came from London to try to,
was sent by the Cam to like sort of place a foothold, plant a flag, and like that was his kind of his claim to fame, or his trying to like impress. It would have been Mithras at that point as Prince of London, who like did not particularly care for Riley, and like kind of effectively thought he was just an annoying little nuisance,
which he is,
he absolutely is. He's a pain in the ass. So he was like, I'm gonna go to the Americas,
and I'm gonna
like,
make a name
basically. And he just fucks it up irrevocably.
Yeah. So like my character Revna gets captured, and she's just like a big buff muscle mommy Viking woman, right?
Like 6'5". Fucking...
And I imagine like they capture her, and they've got her like parading around like an oddity or like a trophy of war, and he decides like, I'm gonna take that one and make her a great vampire. Yeah, you're coming home with me. And he turns her, and like because of like the character creation, I was like, I knew kind of like that's what it was, but going through the character creation process, and finding like picking and like buying the abilities that you can with certain coins that you can spend, and that helped me start to like form a little bit of an idea or a narrative of like who she is, what can she do, and like why she can do what she can do. And I think one of the things that I invested like a lot of fucking points into is the fact that like I cannot be like bloodbound.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I was like, I sacrificed a lot of other abilities to get that, because then it makes sense of like him turning her, and like she essentially just went buck wild and couldn't be controlled. And in that like first embrace, she basically massacred the people of Roanoke.
Yeah, so she is Roanoke. Like
she is the reason Roanoke happened, and those people disappeared.
Which is hilarious, because then it's like that's still a thing that's talked about in court, and like you're the boogeyman.
Yeah.
And so like her character had been like effectively at that point, Anne would like Mithras was prince, Anne was seneschal. And so it was Anne who was trying to like Anne and Riley have a little thing going on, a weird relationship that like we very much yet to play out. But But so she supported and kind of helped fund Riley going to try to like garner some goodwill with Mithras and get himself a little bit of power. And so like Anne had to go to Mithras with her tail between her legs and be like, my son fucked up. And it's like they're not, Anne isn't his sire, but like they just
have like
they have a relationship that's weird and undefined at the moment.
Gotcha.
And so Mithras had to issue a blood hunt.
And also clean up the business that happened there.
He had an obligation as prince sort of to do that, because it's getting like this is beyond a masquerade breach. This is beyond like this is you're in the history books, right? Like people
Casually
still like morals are still talking about this shit that was actually done by a kindred, and so like this was a huge cleanup job. So I was like, all right, we have to fucking issue a blood hunt. But then there was a lot of things on the side, and Mithras sent some of his like own agents to go and try to find Revna. And one of them, like, who's now Revna's friend Carmilla, was the one who found her and sort of talked her down, ended up putting her in torpor for about like 400 years. As just a little like sit on ice.
Yeah, cool down.
Period.
Take a lap.
And then brought her out of torpor about, what do we say, like a year or two prior to the campaign starting.
So I am literally like, you took a Viking from her time, had her take a little forever nap, and now she's back in like whatever current society is.
Yes.
And she's like, hey, I don't get what half of this shit is.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
so
be real
like,
with you,
Chief.
Chief.
Smartphone.
Yeah, she's like a little grandma.
What makes it intelligent?
And it's really weird because like Revna would normally be, I had everybody also start, this is another thing, I didn't have them start as fledglings or neonates. I said like, oh, you can start as I always mispronounce it, but like Ancilia, like however you pronounce that. I think it's Ancilla. Like, oh, start that so you have a few more like experience points to spend, like buy yourself something nice.
Get yourself something
kind of thing. But
and I was like, cool, max strength.
Yeah, literally. Like, yeah, canonically, like Revna would be an elder.
Yeah.
But I was like, we're gonna fix it mechanically by having you, like, you've lost some of your blood potency and stuff like over the 400 years you were in torpor. And then so of course like Carmilla's been awake and active and in the court machinations the entire time. Right. And so it's a very interesting thing of like Revna now getting thrown.
She's like, I'm gonna put my piece on the board now.
Yeah. And like Revna had an indigenous man as a lover. And like he is canonically, she thinks he's dead, assumes.
But he's somewhere in court.
But he's somewhere in play still. And that's to be messed around with.
It's gonna be so good.
And uses trauma.
Yeah. So like she handed me that player guide and like I was frothing at the fucking mouth the whole time. I was like the voices as I'm like writing everything down.
I get the same way. Like you hand me, like, I don't know what it is about player creation that just activates the goblin in me where I have to like read everything. I have to weigh everything against everything else. It's why Vampire the Masquerade can be kind of dangerous for that. The earlier editions had so many options to choose from. It was kind of ridiculous. They definitely condensed it a little bit and simplified and like kind of merged some things for V5. But I don't know if y'all have played Pathfinder, like first edition or second edition.
No,
we haven't touched it, but we technically own all of the Pathfinder things because there was another like Humble Bundle. Oh, I snagged that shit like a mother. And that was also like, I think it was around like the OGL scandal shit. Yeah. And so we were also on that bridge of like, do we fucking dip? Do we stop doing D&D? Like, what are we doing?
We'll take these deals, though.
Sliding their entire library in downloadable link, just being like,
and we're like, yes, we will take this.
Just watch it.
Yeah, we will take all of this. Thank you. And we just have that sitting there. And I'm sure at some point we'll probably delve into it.
Totally. Yeah, I really want to. I've never played it. I don't know anything about it mechanically.
2E's a lot of fun. First edition though, it was based off of like 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons. So everything from 3.5 you could kind of carry over.
Yeah.
And then they made stuff and did stuff for basically the entire run of 4th through 5th. So they had like 10 plus years of just feats. Every book had several feats. Every book had like new weapons. Every book had new magical items. So when you were making a character, and like they also had this thing where instead of like subclasses, they could have archetypes and you could mix and match archetypes and it was like so complicated. I remember like first reading through the book, like as I had a game that I was going to play for Pathfinder 1E. And then I start like weighing all these things. I look up at the clock and it's like, oh, like, I could do this for another hour or two. It's like 7:00 at night. And then I look back up at the clock after what I thought was like an hour, and it was 4 a.m.
You blacked out.
I was like blacked out, and I had like
hours later.
Yeah.
I had several character sheets. Like when I'm like weighing all these things that like honestly don't matter. It's like, but what if I do like take this cooking feat? Like maybe it'll.
What if I do?
It's gonna be needed. Like I came to, I was washing the blood off my hands.
Oh yeah, every single time that I have to make like a new D&D character, for example, it looks like I'm about to summon a demon because I have all my fucking books laid out on the floor. I've got character sheets, I've got pencils and notes and shit ready, dice, and I'm like, no, yeah, this is my summoning ritual. And if anybody else walked in here, they would crucify me as a witch.
Yeah, that was me when we were making like Ale and our friend Alyssa were making, or no, and Bex were making their VDM characters of like, because I had all of my books and I was like, okay, we're going to walk through this very intensive process, which they loved. And I was stressed out about the whole time. So I was like, this is incredibly complicated and I don't know what I'm doing. And this is taking too long. And they're just like digging it and loving it. And as I'm having a panic attack, because
I was like, I need you to tell me where I can't flip through because everything else is about to get torn.
Yeah,
apart.
and so I basically just didn't give them the Fall of London book. And then I was just like, they would ask for something, and I'm like, it's in this one, it's in this. And I was like, my beautiful mind set up of fucking books.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, look at these lore sheets, look at this like ability, and
Over here like goddamn Doctor Strange with all the books levitating around us.
That would be so great if I could do that.
It's so good though. You're about to start like a VTM game though, right?
We had our first full session 2 weeks ago because I had to travel last week. We're going to have our second session tomorrow. So it sprung from the ashes of a 5e game. I had this pretty long running 5e game and it just kind of unceremoniously ended. And some of the characters, some of the players, not characters, so some of these paladins wanted to play.
The two are one and the same now.
Yeah. Some of the players were still available. And I was trying to get my wife involved, and she plays Dungeons and Dragons occasionally, but it's not her favorite thing. But I had mentioned Vampire the Masquerade before, and she seemed really interested. She loves fantasy novels, and she loves like, I can't remember what it's called, but like the fae, like if it has a fae
court of thorns
or like
roses.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Mossiverse.
Yeah. The blood that flows through my veins. Absolutely.
Yes. She loves
the
it.
base for like half.
Yeah.
And I think she, like, some of those books in like the similar veins and stuff, they, are demons or they're vampires, but, kind of similar premise, is usually some hapless young girl that's ensconced in some mythological something rather.
It's a plug and play format and it works.
Yeah. And then they become the most powerful one of all that
Mm-hmm.
format.
They're the chosen one.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
I am a pick-me, don't at. I'm a pick-me in fantasy novels, and then I choose morally gray villains. Like, nobody look at me too closely.
Like, have I read 18 shadow wielding like Melman characters? Yes. Am I complaining about that? Absolutely not.
No.
I think y'all would get along with my wife.
Absolutely. I am gonna ask you to give us her contact information after this. She has new friends. Don't worry about it.
I do want to start like running other little VTM like one shots and stuff, and so if she would want to play that, I'd be helpful.
She absolutely could. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I'll send me your information. I'll send hers along. So she seemed kind of interested, and then it kind of ended up being a girls' night plus me type of scenario.
Yes, that's our favorite.
So it's been fun, and it has been. So we met up like. Well, it's all online, but we had our first kind of like meeting and we went through character creation, and I was a little worried because I don't think I had at that time the player's guide, which makes it really easy to create a character. I just had the book, and there's a long-standing tradition in Vampire the Masquerade to make the core rule book as difficult as possible to use to actually create a character. Let's separate all this important information by like 30 pages every single time. Let's mention something and then let's bring it up at the end of the book.
Yeah. So it's like, did I hallucinate that page, or is it actually in the book? Or it's like, it's kind of a nightmare. The amount of post-it notes I have sticking out of my books.
I'm looking at them right now on your shelf with post-it notes all over them.
Yeah, I just don't take them out. So I'm like, I might need to find that again. And if I take the post-it note out, it's gone into the ether. The book will eat it.
Oh, yeah.
And I will never get it back.
It is a nightmare to use for character creation. It's not so bad if you're like looking up rules and stuff. Because I mean, I have a PDF, so I can like just search for it.
Yeah, search for it.
But I was worried, like, I don't know if they're going to make it past. Like my wife, especially when it comes to like the really crunchy bit, like she's the opposite of me. She does not like crunch at all. The second you start throwing rules out at her, she's like, I don't know if this is for me. So it's like, I was
like,
really
I just want to
worried.
play pretend.
Yeah. Literally.
Exactly. So I was a little worried about like whether or not they'd make it past, because it is a little, I think at least at the beginning, it's a little more complicated to start up than Dungeons and Dragons, because Dungeons and Dragons, you can kind of, I want to be just like a big old burly barbarian. Oh, I pick barbarian. I pick, I'm going to be a genasi this time. And then I'm going to, grab my equipment. And then you're more or less ready to play.
Yeah.
But in Vampire, you need like, do you want a mentor? Do you like, what's your background stuff? Do you want a lore sheet? Who do you want to be related to? Like, what clan do you want? Do you know anything about your flaws? Like,
how many dots do you put in this obscure?
What was your relationship with your parents?
Yeah, like what specialties do you have? What before your character was turned when they were immortal? Did they go to school? What was their major? Do you even know what you wanted your major to be?
Do you know their big 3 zodiac signs?
Yeah, it's like
exactly.
It's so much, and like it's cool, but it's very overwhelming at first.
It is. So I had a questionnaire that I got from my storyteller, because I'm in we play Revised, which I believe is the 90s version, because that's his like favorite. That's his like his heyday version. So that's what he plays.
Nice.
So I just kind of modified it for V5 to a certain degree and sent it to them. But it is like a 3. It's basically like 3 pages on a sheet where it's basically just like asking questions, and like you don't necessarily have to answer all of them, but it's a good idea to help you form the idea of a character. Like you can kind of roll through them and kind of create a character as you go just by answering the questions. I gave that to them, and I have the one player that I had from Dungeons and Dragons who, when we first started playing, sent me 15 pages of backstory.
Incredible.
She
An icon.
sent me a message being like, "Yes, please." And then she dove so hard into it. I couldn't help but laugh. Like the character that she came back out with, I was like, "This is perfect." She's Malkavian, and my storyteller said this was a little cliche, but I think it's hilarious. She is a forever like 13-year-old girl. What he said is the concept is like a little cliche, because I guess it's from, what is it?
Vampire, Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah, but I think she overwhelms it by, she was turned at the like 1999 NSYNC Millennium Tour in Wisconsin. Like,
I love that.
She would, and her name is Jessica G.
Yes.
And there just happened to be some other there was a vampire clique of other like tweens, all named Jessica, that she happened to like run into.
And they were like, clearly you have to become a part of this.
Yes, exactly. So she was with them for, I think, because it's a modern day campaign, so for about 20 years. And then in Washington, D.C., they were outside of, because they had moved on to K-pop bands, because that's the new hot boy band thing. There was a new Jessica that came into and then for whatever reason there was some conflict. My player's Jessica G failed to be able to tell which of like NSYNC is like currently hot at the moment, which I believe is maybe 1 or 2. But yeah, it was immediately expelled from the coven of
exiled from the League of Jessica.
Yeah, and then they moved on to Korea to follow this K-pop band, and she was ditched in Washington, D.C.
Rip, my
it's
girl.
Amazing. And then my wife,
is iconic.
Go ahead.
Oh,
my wife was also very funny. She, I like, we started like, because she like looked at the questions like, I need you to kind of help me out with this and like explain to me why these questions are important. So we were kind of doing it together. And her immediate thought was like, I want to be a witch. And then like some of the answers to the questions, like, where did you grow up? She's like, oh, that island. You remember that island where like, there was like that movie with Nicolas Cage where he was like eaten by bees. I was like, wait, are you talking about the Wicker Man Island? She's like, yes.
I want to go to there.
Yeah. She's like, so I was like, wait, well, what do you mean? Like you came from the, like, you're going to be one of the people that like kills all the men. She's like, yes. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
As she should, honestly.
That feels right.
That feels right, yeah.
And
That feels correct.
it feels right. And she's like, I just want to be witchy and I want to like kill men. And I was like starting to get a little scared as like she's going through some of her impulses. Like, all right, well, this is going to be interesting to see how this evolves.
Are we working through something?
Yeah, is there something I need to be worried about?
We need to have a check-in as like people. Like, are you good?
Yeah, and I asked her like, "Oh, what is your greatest goal? Like, what would be your character's goal?" And like,
Kill all men.
No, better. She took like a drink of wine. I was like, "I'd like to kill a lot of fuckboys."
Yes.
Good for her. Good for her.
Oh, the purge we need. Not all heroes wear capes. Some of them are witches from the Wicker Island.
That's a rich hunting ground.
It is in DC. And so she picked a Tremere. And so she's got like, and then I won't necessarily say what everybody's going to, but they all settled on Blood Cult together.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible.
As an idea for like the coterie. So that's been very fun. We had the first adventure and their first like, this is their first time without the training wheel. So they don't have a shadow and they don't have anybody like watching out for them. One of their... so the Blood Cult has some herd to itself, and funny enough, all of them got like at least 2 points of herd. So they are drowning in like just people who are just wanting to give them blood, which I think is very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the herd had gotten like involuntarily taken into a mental hospital by their parents, and they thought it had something to do with the Blood Cult. Unknowingly to them, it was not. Well, it may have been, but it wasn't because of the Blood Cult, not like directly. So their first adventure was like going to this this mental hospital in like Northeast DC, and
a grippy sock vacation, if you will.
It was a grippy sock vacation, and I was a little worried because we'd played Dungeons and Dragons before, but it's so different going from like Dungeons and Dragons where the first and last solution is always just to smash something into smithereens to a game where you really have to have some finesse if you want your character to last.
You gotta be like, narrative about it.
Yeah, they went to court the first episode because I'm a masochist and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll play 6 different NPCs. I've never DM'd before. And
I'm dreading that so hard, doing the court stuff.
I did it the first time with like little to no prep. I didn't have a copy of people's character sheets. It was a wild time. I was very much just trial by fire. But now I'm more comfortable doing it.
And it was dope.
Like, they loved it. And I did ask them 6 times. I was like, are you like, did you, like, was it actually good? And they're like, no, yeah, we had a good time. I'm like, we're good regardless. But yeah, I'm like, homies, you don't want me to start rolling dice. I'm like, I don't have enough dice to roll for these bitches right now.
Yeah, these bitches are max level, and y'all just barely came out your coffins.
Like, I need another set of dice to roll, like, because I was like, I feel like 9 strength, that like 9 dice strength. Like
that's much dice to roll.
It is so like I think that's one of the best things about Vampire is it tricks you into thinking like, oh, I'm the supernatural monster. Like
I'm a bad bitch.
Yeah, I can do anything I want. And then occasionally another character will come in, like an NPC or just another character who's immediately humbled. There was, and it didn't happen in this game, but in the game I play in with a different one, there were, we're currently like in a Sabbat stage where we're playing Sabbat. Nice. And there was a Bruja that was like trying to start some nonsense with a La Sombra. And he thought he could be like, bullshit, get her really pissed off and then like, beat the crap out of her because he's a Bruja. But the La Sombra player was like, all right, well, I'm going to use my high tier La Sombra power, like sprout out 5 tentacles of shadow and then proceed to put you in torpor immediately, like round 1. And
yeah, like this is not the hentai episode that you were prepared for.
But it's the hentai episode
that you're going to get.
You gonna learn today?
No, exactly. It was like immediate. And I thought like, oh, this could be interesting back and forth because we was a campaign. The Sabbat came in and some of us turned over to Sabbat. And now there's like 2 leaders of the city supposed to be working together, but it's very obviously not working well together. And we were like, oh, this could really decide like if this is going to be a long-term power struggle or this is basically just waiting for one of them to knock off the other one on a whim, and it was immediately decided that this is going to be not a long-term power struggle. If one of them really wanted to, they could just off them immediately.
Yeah, like you are surviving by the grace of my patience.
But yeah, there was another crazy time in this campaign where anytime there's Malkavians involved, it's always a wild story. So there was like this possible treacherous meeting between a bunch of the Primogens to see if they want to overthrow the prince, because the prince was acting really funky and wasn't like moving. It wasn't doing anything to fight off the Sabbat. It was actually making some openings for the Sabbat to like take over, which we kind of assumed that maybe he might be a Sabbat infiltrator. So there was this meeting of all the Primogens, and the Malk player was like, I want to run this meeting. And we were all just kind of like looking around at each other like, I guess if you want.
You sure about that?
You sure? Like we always kind of took a couple steps back and let it happen. And then some of the Primogens were like, do you have any proof of this? Like, what do you want us to do? And instead of being a rational being, they use some high level Malkavian power, which was supposed to enrage the entire room and make them fall to the beast.
My God.
Luckily, it did not work. But my sire, who is like the Nosferatu Primogen, was still pissed off by it.
Yeah.
Walked up to the Malkavian and then just like backhanded him. And then the storyteller proceeded to roll 12 dice.
Yeah, no.
It was like, oh, you're in torpor now.
Yeah, you get backhanded into the next room.
Like, I should say for people who haven't played Vampire before, like the Primogen Council is part of the court. And so it's sort of like a ruling body that helps make decisions. And so there's a representative from each of the high clans, which are like the main clans that the Camarilla recognizes. So it's like not every clan always has a representative. It depends on the city and the court and all of that. But it's sort of a like what Democratic Republic-esque situation. And that, but not really.
No.
It's just like they name the highest ranking member of each sort of high clan will come and then represent
the whole
all of their people. But that's really only the people who are Camarilla and of that clan. It doesn't count Anarchs. It doesn't count like unaffiliated or anything like that.
But yeah, wild ride. It's always a wild ride in Vampire the Masquerade, especially when some characters feel like they've gotten a little too big for their britches. They're immediately struck back down.
Absolutely. Like I love like what you're doing in ours, for example. Like we said, like with my character Revna, it's like technically by age she should be like an elder, but she's been fucking night out the whole time. And then she's really basically like almost a fledgling. She is literally a fledgling vampire in some ways.
Socially.
Because she was never fully like embraced or taught the ways of the Camarilla or whatever. Like that's been kind of secondhand. It happened after she woke up.
Yeah, and like the last sort of year or so. Because I think y'all are all 10th generation, I believe. So it's like elders, I believe, start at like 8th.
Yeah.
Right?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. So it's like you're close.
Yeah.
You're not. I think, yeah, truly off of that, when you were turned, you would have probably been like a 7th-ish generation. I can't remember off the top of my head what canonically Riley is, but it's also I haven't fully figured out who Riley's sire is.
Yeah. And like, but I love that power dynamic of like just looking at like the stuff that my character can do alone, and obviously like we're a little bit higher up than like what you would normally start Vampire on. So there is a little bit of that element of like I can't wait till we get into the shit as far as like combat or like doing other stuff that we get to flex our skills a little bit, because I know there's going to be the elements of like, oh yeah, am a badass monster, but then also there's the flip of the coin where we are also intermingled with a lot of like the bigger powers at play. We're middle children, and so like we're very like closely brushing shoulders with a lot of the bigger bads of the court, and one wrong social situation and we are gonna get rocked out of our mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, but like to mortals, to younger, fledgling or neonate vampires or thin bloods or whatever, you're god level powerful. Right? Yeah. And then you are brushing shoulders with people who are actually god level powerful. Yeah. Like Mithras, like all of those that that's sort of why I let y'all start a bit higher up, because I knew I wanted Mithras to have a big role in this campaign. And I'm like, if you're like babies, like
we would have no business
fresh being off the fang, like you're not. I can't get it in my head where like Mithras would agree to work with these just like fresh newborn babe kindred. So I'm like, you gotta be like you're
someone with a little bit of weight to throw.
Yes, to someone of that, to like a kindred of that age, you're still young and impressionable, right? Because he's like 4th generation.
Yeah.
But you are also, you have some skills, you've had some years behind you, like you have very different experiences. Like, yeah, Revna's a Toreador, and then we have a Ventru, kind of like socialite, that's who Bex plays, and then our friend Alyssa plays a Zamitzi, which I was like,
so good.
I sent her like a short list of clans. So I was like, because I'm like, I know this is very overwhelming. I'm like, I can send you like a hit list of ones that I think would be cool. Because she wanted like a very kind of book smart, nerdy something. And I'm like, so we could do like someone that had occult knowledge and everything. Like we have like a muscle mommy.
We got brawn. We got social
graces. I'm like, we need somebody that like
has more than 3 brain cells to throw around.
Book in like the last century.
Can need somebody to warp flesh on like an industrial level.
Yeah. And then I was like, I really like Zamitzis, and they're really creepy and cool. And I wanted to bring in some horror elements in there. So I just like slid that in the list. And I'm like, I listed that one first, and then I'm like, I got permission. I'm like, can I do some fuck shit with your sire for like her? Because her like Alyssa's character sire is like much older than Mitzi. Like he can do some fuck shit. Like you're gonna walk in, and he's just like building a fucking flesh golem that's like bebopping around and getting books for him. I'm like, what in the fuck?
Yeah.
But I'm very excited for that. That'll be super
That sounds like a ton of fun.
It is so cool. And like I identify so much with your wife on the whole like I hate men and I'm going to kill a bunch of men, because Revna is 100% on that same train. Like I took inspirations of her of like I wanted her to be like Carmilla from Castlevania, but then also Striga. Like the Striga build with the Carmilla personality. And because of like Riley and everything else that happened, she's just very anti like men in power specifically.
Yes. And also just like even before you returned, like colonizers and like ultimately, like you were already sort of had a white man put a bad taste in your mouth.
These white men are dangerous, and
literally
so she's very very like anti, like we did a really cool thing with her as far as like her feeding style and like her prey whatever, because I think she's got like the
you can eat anything you want.
I can eat anything I want,
like a 3-day-old.
And be chilling.
Few drops out of it,
because she was out here surviving in the woods, trying to run away from being hunted for a minute. But I think her feeding style, we split it, and so it's like specifically when she feeds off women, it's like a much gentler seduction thing, and when it's men, it's very like violent cat in a alleyway about to tear you apart type shit.
And I was just like, there's some stuff like that where it's just like I thought was cool, and like, y'all thought was cool, and I was like, I was like, no, because they've never played it. I've never run this game. I've followed and like watched streams of Vampire for a while, but I'm like we're all super new to this. I'm like, if it's cool and fun, I'm allowed to fucking do it. So it's so RP heavy that like the mechanics are very much a guide in Vampire, which is what I love. So we split her feeding style, but it's also really cool because you're a Venture.
Toreador.
You were a Toreador. Yeah. But so it's like yes, you don't have the feeding restriction, but our Venture character does.
Yeah.
So it's like Venture can only eat like certain things. And so I'm just waiting for you to pull
a rat out of my pocket.
Yeah, just
use it like a Capri Sun.
Pull out your your pocket rat and just be sipping. And Bex's character is like, what
in the fuck
is wrong?
Yeah, and I'm like, it's good blood.
Like the juice be juicing.
The juice be
the
juicing.
Forbidden Kool-Aid.
I'm waiting for my sire to walk up to me in court and try to like offer me some shit, and I'm like, I would rather eat this dead rat, thank you.
And you pull out a pocket.
Yeah,
a pocket
rat.
Yeah, and like spit in his fucking face. I don't know.
Yeah, go spit the blood in his face.
I'm gonna be a problem.
Is V5 the only version of Vampire that y'all have played?
Yeah, we just started this.
So it's the only version that I'm familiar with.
Okay. I mean, I'm only familiar with the revised version in this. And it is interesting some of the changes they made. I think there's a lot of improvements, but there's also some weird stuff they've done.
Like what?
So I was going to ask y'all, do you use like the blood humor thing at all?
Blood humor.
As far as like how it affects the flavor of the blood, like whether it's like sanguine or caloric or something. So it's part of it. It's sort of just like how like the four humors, so like they talk about some of like caloric, sanguine, or it's like none. I don't know to look it up. So I
can't even remember all of them off the top of
So
my
I
head. But yeah, there's like the four humors, and then there's also the diascrachas or whatever, diascrachas, which is supposed to be like the super rare blood.
I don't know.
I heard something about like some people having super rare blood that is like really sought after, and there's like a specific thing that if you are that, like you're typically like
that's a
hunted
clan
more than
that
normal.
Is almost kind of gone because
they get fucking Capri Sun.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Because it was very interesting to see that change. Because I wasn't so sure about that change, so I was curious to see if people like talk to people that maybe used it. Because it does sound like because it made it seem like it was very integral to the game. It's like, if you want to level up a certain power, you need to find like a very angry person to drink tonight. It's like, I mean, does that? Because I was confused by that. It's like, does that mean you have to like make them angry, or are you literally trying to go out in the world and like find a person that's just pissed off all the time?
So I think like, because we have one, like that's his character. Her background is like she's from like an old money like Italian family that has a lot of vineyards. It's like her sire has a lot of vineyards, and then there's sort of the back room stuff of that where they do some like very selective sort of
private parties for elite
reading and like hunting down people that have very specific sort of flavors to their blood from their life experience for like kindred that have the money to spend in their
the finer taste in life,
right? They're ventures, right? But yeah, so I have sort of used it as more of a flavor thing. It'll be more of a thing for Bex's character because it's part of her business. Gotcha. But yeah, I think the ones are like melancholic, which is sad, choleric, phlegmatic, and
I know in like LA by Night, because I watched a lot of that prepping for our session. There is like a Ventru NPC that comes in from time to time, but she specifically has to like feed from people that are in a specific state of like terror, I think.
Yeah, it's one of the barons.
Yeah. And so like I guess that would be a part of that.
Kind of. Like, yeah, it's not like a mechanical part of V5, or at least I'm not playing it like that. You maybe could, but it's one of those things where like I'm not gonna add in more things to like keep track of. But
oh, true. That's what I was thinking as well. I was like, I might flavor with this, but I am not keeping track of diascrachas or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be like, because there's certain.
Did you feed on enough sad people today?
Right. Or it's like, oh, like your person was sad, but they weren't depressed. So you don't get like all of your blood dice back. Like I can't. You don't get to remove
the person that like thrives only on sad people. The second y'all enter that fucking grippy sock vacation is like, it's feeding time, baby. Where's the depression ward?
Real estate.
I'm about to jump.
Literally. Just bringing like hydro flasks, and they're just like, don't mind me, just taking some blood for the lab.
Yeah.
My hydro flask.
Yeah.
I do it in bulk.
The forbidden IV. Like the old sluggies where they used to like drink blood as like Coke bottles and shit.
Oh yeah.
In war, but it's just like for drinking.
Oh my god.
But yeah, like it's a thing, but like we've not been playing it. We're also not super far in the game, but like. I don't think it'll be a more interesting for Bex's characters, especially, but it's not. I think like we've just gone with like feeding styles, but I think even with feeding styles of like I'm not going to be overly strict with that.
I feel like our feeding styles are very related to like the RP.
Yeah,
and so I feel like that's a more on us thing to stay true to that. Like I intend to, as far as like, yeah, if it's a man in a back alley, she's gonna be a lot more ferocious about it. Yeah. But like with women specifically, like she's a hardcore lesbian out here, and so she's really out here just trying to seduce every woman out of every man's arms.
Yeah, which is why I'm so excited for Revna to meet Mithras, because I'm like, is this gonna be like Revna's exception to the rule?
Maybe. I feel like she makes an exception for gay men and gay men only.
Yeah. Live your best life.
Yes.
Darren who are like down to clown, which like we've pretty much said like all of the like elder vampires are like everybody's pan and most everybody's poly.
Because how do you live that long and not be?
Because it's like you've gotta keep it interesting. And also like there is also a thing in vampires where like sex is not super, and like horny activities aren't super emphasized, because like you are dead and like the only liquid in your body is blood technically. And so it's like you have to like activate blush of life to have sex. So it's not really, that's not a thing that's usually a motive for us, but I'm like, that's so much of the fun for like our, like my players and like our group, whoever is flirting with people and being horny and being on our girly pop shit.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm discarding that rule because I want that to be an element of,
True.
and like, it's always a fun humanizing force too. When you let that come in as come into play.
I always thought it was weird that, because like it says on the humanity scale that basically, I think you have to be like you have to be pretty high up on the humanity scale for it to be like, oh, you can enjoy sex, which always felt like weird to me.
Don't tell me. Yeah.
Also, if I'm getting more down with the beast inside, I feel like you'd arguably be more.
You're into.
Yeah, you'd be a little more.
That's what I was thinking. Like if you're like if we're gonna call like, you know, that base, which I don't know if necessarily like sexual stuff is like base activity. No. But if
not
you're
for
gonna
everybody.
go like feral and like run around with everybody you meet,
you're like, I'm hungry and horny. And
like it's a Baldur's Gate Halson cutscene vibe.
Yeah.
If you're falling into a vice, I feel like to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that it would like, at least maybe in the midpoint, it wouldn't do anything for you, but like you're very good, maybe you do enjoy. But as you get like lower in humanity, maybe it's more of like a lust thing and a thirst that you have to quench. That would make sense to me.
I kind of like that. I'm like, if you get to the point where like, you've lost like all your humanity and you're basically just a white, which is like you're no longer having any sort of consciousness at all, you only have the hunger, then like at that point you're a monster, right? So like you have no drive but to take the forbidden cities.
Yeah, especially I feel like if you're
then like even like older characters who do not have much humanity, like I just like having that in play. I think it's more fun.
I think especially for like there's certain clans like Toreador, for example, or like what's the other one that's like Toreador and that one are always kind of at odds because they're both pretty like seductive or aesthetically pleasing and all that stuff.
Ventru?
It's not Ventru.
I mean, Ventru and Toreador are rivals traditionally because like Ventru see Toreador as too like flippant and
no, there is another one. I know because in Allied by Night there's like another NPC that is part of that other clan and like the one who's a Toreador. Maybe I don't know.
Sombra is supposed to be like pretty also, but also scary.
Yeah,
maybe
it might be that and and so like for those clans specifically, it's like, like that element of like seduction or intimacy or whatever, like plays such a big part into like who they are. And I imagine even if you're leaning more into the beast on that end, like I feel like those might get enhanced in that clan specifically. But or even just like as an element of like power or whatever, like you can do a lot of interesting things with it. But having it be like this is just not a thing you enjoy. I'm like, I doubt it.
Don't take that.
I disagree.
It's like I had to sit for a bit because like y'all had asked me if it's like, because like in some canons like vampires still eat food or they still drink wine or they still like enjoy mortal pleasures. And it's like I had and I thought for a while I'm like, okay, they can't be out here like having a burger, like that's just not gonna work. But I'm like, can you have like a glass of wine? But I'm like, that gets a little mechanically complicated. So I'm like, okay, you can't have snackies, but you can fuck people.
Yeah.
that's the balance I came to.
Yeah, you can't go to the bodega late at night, but you can smash.
The storyteller giveth and the storyteller taketh.
Yeah.
So funny. Got to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah, and my line is M&Ms. Like, you're not going there.
Do y'all have a Nosferatu in your campaign?
We don't.
We don't. No. But
that would be interesting.
I do love Nosses. We have there's some NPCs, like one of the sheriffs is a Nos. apparently there's like 4 sheriffs of London, which I didn't think about. And I'm like, we may not have 4 sheriffs of London because I don't know if I want to play 4 sheriffs. We may have 1 sheriff and like 4 hounds.
You can have some shadow sheriffs that we just know are there, but we don't interact with.
Some beat cops.
Too busy.
Yeah, they're just so busy with so many other things.
Literally, yeah. But no, yeah, the Nosferatu are really cool. And I think as y'all start getting into, because a lot of our campaign is political intrigue and stuff, you will probably go and visit some Nosses for like information and
yeah, I think they're so cool.
What
Nos are a ton of fun.
In the campaign that you play in, what does everybody play? Like, what are their plans?
So I'm a Nosferatu.
Nice.
And I think I'm maybe the only voice of reason. That's why maybe it's something I've fallen into, but it's something I've seen in other campaigns and Chronicles is the Nosferatu player, because they are so vulnerable to like the outside seeing them. They're usually more conscious of like, this plan is insane. Maybe we
got to be a little bit more cautious.
They're
than this.
a think it through clan because they can't just be out here
can't just be out in
bamboozling
these
and
streets.
strolling down the streets.
So I'm a Nosferatu. We did have a Ventru. They are, since we moved to Sabat, they're no longer a Ventru. They are now a La Sombra because they're now like a new character. We have a couple. 2 La Sombras actually, and then we have a Bruja, a Malkavian, and I'm blanking on the more animalistic one. What am I blanking on here?
Oh my goodness. Like somebody, like, people are gonna be listening to this and just shrieking it into the
Gangrel.
Yeah, Gangrel. And then a Gangrel in the mix. So it's a pretty interesting mix. We've always had a good mix of social and like intelligence and like brute strength.
Yeah,
That's good. Yeah.
You
So
really
it's always
need all
worked
of
out
them.
pretty good.
I would also really love, because one of our players thought that my friend Beck, she thought she wanted to play a Hakata, like one of the Hakata families. And when that's why I got in the Cult of the Blood Gods book, and like I read through it, and I'm like, oh, this is its own universe unto itself. And I'm like, if you want to do it, I'm like, I will take this bullet for you, and I will also learn this book if that is truly what you want to do. But she ended up going Ventru. Like, I would love to do a campaign where it is just like all Hakatas from like the different families and like all of that rivalry and
That'd
like
be cool.
mafia-esque vibes. Like that would be really fun. Like we're gonna play around a little bit with it because we have some like NPCs that are Hakata, but and so we can play with like the kind of in between Shadowfell-esque like lands, in between lands and stuff. But that is a really cool source too that I would like to dig into.
I feel like vampires like that. There's so many worlds within worlds. So like Tremere, maybe slightly less, because in previous editions they were like this whole thing unto themselves.
Yeah.
And I think they made an actually pretty good move to bomb them for V5 and like remove the whole structure. But they have their whole thing. Like they have House Karna, which is what my wife is in, which is like the let's just do cool witchy shit together and like probably drain some mortals along the way. And then you've got like Goratrix, and you have the actual old standard. So they have this like 3-way struggle.
Yeah. It's like split into 3 houses after, because they were sort of like the pyramid, and they were all part of a very hierarchical. The clan was very hierarchical unto itself, and then it fit within the CAM hierarchy after that.
Yeah.
But then after, like, their headquarters were in, like, Vienna, and they got, like, raided by them.
Wow. How unprofessional. Just kidding. I love Pam.
But no, yeah, they got like smart bombed and then raided, which honestly was a good move. So in the revised game that we're playing, we've had a few Tremere players, not anymore, because I guess the Tremere aren't really part of the Sabbat, so they couldn't really be part of the story. But they were just too powerful, both narratively and like mechanically. The things that they can do kind of dwarf what everybody else does. And there is this idea that because they're in this pyramid and they're automatically like blood bound to the next level, and they don't have as much free will. That's supposed to be like a drawback. But if what you want to do is creepy crap that the Tremere wants to do, there is no restriction.
Yeah. Like, as long as you're on brand, baby, go live your dream.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Sure. Like, if you're on brand, like, you can do some wild
wackadoodle shit.
I am a little glad that they leveled them off for V5, and like, it also was a weird thing where the way that they were set up, there is some weird things in Vampire that just kind of don't make sense. Like, they say one thing, but then they do the other. And that was definitely Tremere, where they'd be like, oh, you need 100,000 people for every vampire. And then it's like, oh, there's a chantry in New York that has like dozens of Tremere just on its own, and they're all like institutionalized, and like they have all these different functions, and then they have all these different underlings that could come and go through the city. It's like, how are they supporting all of those?
Yeah, like, where is their Costco-sized pack of people?
Yeah, how many fucking ghoul? What percent of the population of New York is a ghoul?
Yeah,
to like support all of these.
Honestly, that does make sense. They are all just like walking in a haze, going to work every day.
Yeah, that's what all the traffic. That's
what all the traffic's about.
Ghoul traffic.
Ghoul traffic. Oh man. Okay. Well, we are actually coming up on time, but this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and talking all the good Vampire Masquerade shit with us.
We need to do this again, like when we're a little further into our campaign, and like when you're a little further into the campaign with your wife.
A rehash.
And her friends of like a touch back in.
A part 2 Electric Boogaloo, if you will. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, it's been lovely. Ryan, definitely give us a little sign-offs, remind people where they can find you. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. I'm Ryan. I go by RunDMG online. You can find me pretty much anywhere that there's social media and a place that you can post memes on. TikTok, Instagram, Threads. I also make tabletop RPG adventures. So if you want to check out my itch, it's on there. It's under the same name, RunDMG. And it's been a blast being here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys are on TikTok and you are a sucker for good cap cuts, because I know I am, I literally 90% of the shit that I use for our actual TikTok is just from your page. So please, I cannot recommend him enough. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Table Talk is a podcast brought to you by Mythos Media Productions, bringing you a new episode every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Table Talk RPG, or check us out at our website, mythosmediaproductions.godaddyscites.com. All business inquiries can reach out to us via email at info@mythosmediaproductions.com.